Hello and welcome to Chat Room, presented to you by China Global Television Network. I'm Yang Zhao, CGTN's reporter. It's been 19 days since the conflict outbreak between Russia and Ukraine. The fourth round of negotiations is ongoing for an expected comprehensive ceasefire plan, and we'll keep you updated during this show. And join us in the chat room today are Ken Huang, chief editor of Russian service CGTN, Shen Shuwei, politics analyst, and Qiao Liang, specialist in international and Chinese politics, and also experts and stringers around the world will join us live later, including Mr. Luo Yingjie, our international affairs expert in Beijing, Valeria Litovka, an Ukrainian student who live in Beijing right now, Mr. Xu Jing, international relations expert in Oxford, Mr. Rong Ying, vice president of China Institute of International Study, and CGTN strainer Yan Wuser in Kyiv, Martia Sorby in Kharkiv will show us around on the streets of two cities. And we also invite you to be part of this conversation by sending us the topics and questions you want us to talk in the chat room to strainer@cgtn.com. You can also check out our CGTN YouTube channel, where you can participate in a poll to show us your preferences on the topics. So as usual, we start with the latest development on the battlefields. Ken, how about we start with our map?
Okay, let's look at a map.
对，我们还是从这个地图开始。
对，我们还是从地图开始啊。
我们 Can we have the map on on the screen?
Yeah. Please put map on the screen.
Well, as we know, there is the fourth round of negotiations is going.
Yeah.
So, I think the past weekend is pretty it's pretty peaceful compared to the earlier days.
对，因为呢，现在这个谈判呢还在持续中。所以这个今天的战况呢，相对不是太激烈啊。这个在北部地区呢，俄军呢还是实现了对这个切尔尼科夫的包围啊，就是这个地方。在基辅呢，实际是这个从三面吧，把这个基辅包围起来了。目前呢，俄军呢正在向南部包抄，试图呢把这个基辅呢整个合围起来。所以呢，在这里呢，这个乌方的这个抵抗呢还是比较激烈的啊。尤其是在这个我们此前讲的，在伊尔平镇、布查等地所以现在目前是这么个局势啊。那么在乌克兰的这个目前的战事呢，比较集中的呢，还是在这个乌克兰东部地区和南部地区啊。我们来看一下啊，这是乌克兰的这个东部和南部地区。实际上呢，现在双方争夺比较激烈的呢，是在这个地点啊。
They are fighting against each other, mainly in this area, in Izium.
这个地方，现在呢，这个俄乌双方呢，在这个地方呢，反复在拉锯啊。这个俄军呢，试图呢，这个继续南下。
Russian troops, they are fighting in a very fierce manner, and also there are more troops coming from the northern part, so as they can form also another circle. However, the Russian troops, they will definitely encounter another round of heavy defense force from the Ukrainians. So there is the seesaw method, and there are also other troops coming from the southern part of the country. And in the Severodonetsk, it used to be a point of concentration of the government troops from the Ukraine. And in this area, you can find a major amount of the government soldiers from Ukraine. And this is the major status quo.
所以呢，这个在这些地点呢，都是爆发了激烈战斗的地点。
And in all those spots, you can witness severe fights across the two sides. And for the southern part, the hotspot is Mariupol.
这个地方现在是争夺最激烈的啊。目前呢，
Mariupol
据最新的战报呢，这个顿涅茨克地方武装呢已经从东部突进市区，策应呢从这个克里米亚北上的俄军
of Russia, they have already made the breakthrough from Donetsk, and they have been forming another circle around Mariupol. Judging by the status quo, in about 1 week or in 5 days, they can complete this fight. They are doing the fight of annihilation. Judging by the current situation, it's very hard for the Ukrainian government soldiers to make any breakthrough against the Russian troops. After the occupation of the area, Russian troops would like to cut the forces of Ukrainian side into two parts.
And get into, no, I want the
Kharkiv.
I want the map.
Okay, that's back.
So the troop is not in Kharkiv right now.
Yeah, Kharkiv
is heading to the Izium.
对 ，Kharkiv 呢是这样，它呢目前呢还是处于三面合围啊，还是处于三面合围的状态中。
encircled from three directions.
所以呢，这个有一部分这个俄军呢，它是实际是绕过了哈尔科夫南下。
Some of the Russian troops they have made the bypass
Today
in
we
order
have our
to
strainer,
head towards the
the
south.
Martias in Kharkiv, who will later show us what the city still looks like right now in Kharkiv, and also Yan will show us around in Kyiv.
对，在过去的一天呢，实际上是俄军呢仍然用这个远程火力呢对哈尔科夫呢保持这个打击，还是目标吧。
to strike on the military facilities.
还没有采取这个地面的进攻行动。
Until now, there's no massive
另外呢，类似的情况也出现在这个
Similar situation can be observed near Mykolaiv.
目前都是用远程火力进行攻的啊。
They're doing the fights in a remote
Okay,
manner.
and also, well, basically the battle has been concentrated in the north and south and the east, but not too much in the west. But the Russian forces shelled a military facility outside western Ukraine, Lviv, early Sunday morning, and local authorities said 35 people were killed and 134 were injured during this airstrike. This is so rare to see the city in the west that's been shelled by the Russian. Is that the first time? That is.
对这个目前
has been shelled.
对，目前看的这个还是
Yes, exactly.
最新的动向吧，因为此前呢
According to the
俄军没
latest
有对这个西
development,
部地区发起任何的
this
进
is the
攻
new thing.
据
In the
最新的
past,
战报
there are
来看
no
呢
major
这个
attacks
攻
from the
击
Russian
主要是
troops,
以摧毁当地的军事
and
设施
they were aiming
主
at
要包括
military
是当地的机场
facilities.
军
For
事训练基
example,
地
the local
等等
airports,
这些地方
local
为主
military training bases.
Okay, now we've been joined by Mr. Luo Yingjie, the professor from the University of International Relations. Hello, Professor Luo. We want to start with, we would like to hear from you about your latest evaluation of this whole situation. It's been, we know it's been 19 days since the conflict starts, and what is your take on the current situation?
对不起，您能够那个没太听清楚啊，您能够用中文那个给我再。
Sorry, could you please repeat the question in Chinese? Thank you. So, Mr. Luo, can you
您好，
hear me
罗老师。
well?
因为我们刚刚讨论
Good
完那
afternoon,
个现
Mr.
在
Luo.
的
Just now we
战
have
场的一个
discussed
基
with the
本的
other
情况。
experts the
我们想
status
听听
quo
您，因
and
为已经19
progress
天了
of
嘛，
the
从整个
troops
的这
on
个
the
战事
ground.
爆发。
It's
我们想
already
听
been
听您在
19
这个整
days
体
after
上
the
对
outbreak
目
of
前
this
这个
special
这个
military
战况的一
operation.
个您的一
So,
个
could
见
you
解。
please share with us your
一个
take
general 的见解
on
啊。
the current situation?
这个战争从2月24号爆发到现在呢，
The outbreak has taken
我
place
们看
on
这
the
个19
24th
天
of February. It's been
从现
19
在的
days
结果来
already.
看，俄军
Judging by
俄
the
罗斯方面
current
确实它是掌握
situation,
着
Russian
还是掌握
troops
这个主动权的。
have a dominant
刚才
power.
从这个地图上面可以看得出，
According
这
to the
个
explanation with the
不
map,
管是在基辅方向还是哈尔
whether
科夫
for
还是顿涅
Kyiv
茨克
or
还
for
是
Donetsk,
马里乌波尔
Kharkiv,
这俄军都是掌握
Mariupol,
着一个主动
in
权。
all those
这
places,
是
the situation has been mainly dominated by the Russian troops. So for external opinion, we have a better understanding about the intentions of the Russian troops.
俄军现在看他的意图，应该可以说他已经按照
But
他的
talking
战略
about
目
this
标在
Russian
往前推
intention,
进。
they are progressing according to their
这个马里乌波尔
preliminary plan.
和
For
这个
example, their
顿涅茨克
priority
和哈尔科
would
夫
be
这个方向。
Kharkiv, Donetsk, Lugansk, and Mariupol. For Kyiv, there's not yet a complete encirclement and no direct ground fights. So Kyiv will not be the top priority. They're encircling without fighting into the capital city. It's mainly for the purposes of political consideration. So to seize Kyiv is not a very difficult task for them. However, they would prefer to avoid the military cost because they prefer to encircle the capital city. For example, encircling the capital city in order to increase the pressure for the government of Ukraine. For the deployment of Russian troops, external opinions have different points of view, but I believe that in a very short period of time, Russian troops could achieve their military goal at different levels. And they're also moving towards a very active direction. And I believe that we should not underestimate the power of the Russian troops. It's been 19 days, this special military operation. In some places, there has been the deadlock, and in other places, intense crossfires. And this special military operation launched by President Vladimir Putin is prolonging in the timeline. And does it correspond with the original intention of President Putin? I should not give the conclusion here. However, I believe that for this European country that has a surface of 600,000 square kilometers, there's a large room for the operation. And I believe that the Russian leaders in the military sector, they must have already considered the difficulty, the level of difficulty before launching the operation.
Okay, so we get back to this chat room. So, gentlemen, I want to talk about a fourth round of negotiation because we have to witness the first 3 rounds of negotiation, which we didn't see any solid progress. But now it seems there are some signals from the reportings that it seems that the things is changing into a little bit more positive way. People were thinking there might be a comprehensive ceasefire instead of a temporary ceasefire that we saw in a first 3 round of negotiation. But this time, people were talking about a comprehensive ceasefire plan might be discussed in the 4th round of negotiation. Why does this change during just during this weekend and everything just changed? What happened?
I think that one of the key reasons is because of the military, this military operation. You see, from Russian side, they have a huge advantage, and you see also their bombardment in the Lviv. Actually, that is also a kind of warning to the West, especially for the NATO. That means you cannot transport any equipment and also the weapons to that part, and that means to cut all military supplies from the West. And you see, for the past over 2 weeks conflicts, the military of Ukraine has lack of shortage, and most of the military infrastructure were wiped out by the Russian troops. And we know there are some reporting about the logistic problems from Russian side, but if you compare the two sides, Russia is still in the very good advantage. So that's why under current situation, they have a bigger say in the negotiation. And from all these political issues, the Ukraine government, especially for President Zelensky, also knows about the internal conflicts, the internal debates from the West. And you see from recently, the EU has clearly said no about this kind of fast track application into the EU membership. So that means the West cannot give the political guarantee right now, and also about the military support. So that means it's only about kind of verbal support from like social media or from the mainstream media. But that is not very supportive in this kind of negotiation. And if they cannot get this kind of results at this current stage, that will be more. They will suffer more, and especially you see from the recent the 2 foreign ministers meeting, because the 2 foreign ministers, they have a bigger say in their respective government. I think that means they have some internal discussion, especially for the details one. But for the
the military operations is ongoing, and diplomatic efforts is actually played a major role during this.
Going parallel, and for the military operation is kind of support for the diplomatic approach.
We have to keep in mind that the special military operation was never Russia's goal. The goal was to get what it wants, especially its own space to defend the expansion of NATO. So long as the special military operation works and the diplomacy
but
also
the progress
works.
on the battlefields is a huge step for them to talk on
exactly.
negotiating table.
They need some chips on the table so they can talk. not because
and apparently they have the chip they want.
Of course, just like our expert just mentioned.
Yeah. Professor Luo, what's your take on the fourth, and how do you expect it for the fourth round of negotiation? 罗老师，我们想听一听那个您对第四轮谈判的这个见解，因为现在第四轮谈判正在进行哈。然后好像前3轮的时候我们都没看到什么特别的成果出来，但是第4轮好像突然一下就明朗了，就是今天已经开始说很可能会有一个非常全面的一个协议会出来，就是突然一下过了一个周末，好像这个所有的事情都有一个挺大的转变。您那边有什么样的消息？内部的消息有没有
？Do you have some insiders information for us？
内部的消息呢，这个确实没有啊。但是呢，
我个人对于这个俄乌双方这个谈判的第1次、第2次、第3次谈判的这个过程来看，就是我有一个感觉越往后谈，实际上大家已经开始越涉及到一些最核心的这个东西。The more talks we have,
你比方说乌克兰的这个
the more core issues can we mention during the talks. For example, demilitarization, denazification, and about Lugansk and Donetsk, and also to abandon the application to join NATO, etc. So this time, it's no surprise that they can reach some practical and also detailed results. This is number one. And secondly, according to the message released, we can expect to see a rather detailed document, an agreement signed by the two sides. So we can have a guess. It's already been 19 days since the outbreak of this military operation. For both sides, Ukrainians and Russians, they have devoted a lot of resources into that. If this conflict continues, then both of the sides will start to do the calculation to see the cost and effectiveness. So a long-term conflict does not fall into the interest of the Russian side, and of course will not fall into the interest of the Ukrainian side. And at the same time, it does not correspond to the interest of the European countries as a whole. So finally, we can see that both sides, they are mobilized to try to reach a certain agreement. But whether they will cover all the bottom line topics raised preliminarily by the Russian side, we have to wait and see. Maybe they cannot complete all the criteria set out by the Russian side. For example, for some requirements, they can reach a directional agreement, and for the other requirements, they can reach some detailed results.
Okay. You agree with with Professor Luo saying. So what might be looks like for the outcome of, for example, like the fate of the Lugansk and Donetsk, the independence of these two regions, will they be mentioned in the fourth round of the negotiation?
我觉得可能目前做这个预测还稍稍早了一点啊。这个我非常同意刚才罗老师所讲，就是说在第4轮谈判中啊，大概率呢，双方可能会有一些原则性的是吧？这个分歧比较大的问题。
Negotiation about topics of great disagreement.
包括这个像顿涅斯克、卢甘斯克。
For example, Donetsk and Crimea and Lugansk. They will save those topics for the next round of talks, and currently they will more like to discuss about the ceasefire and also withdrawal of troops. For the fourth round of talks, one important function is to set the base for the future presidential meeting. They have to prepare some practical results for the next round of presidential encounters. So for some major issues of disagreements, they have to set them aside. For the other issues with common ground, they can try to find some agreement. For example, we all know that for Crimea, Lugansk, and Donetsk. These topics are correlated with the territorial integrity of Ukraine. So I believe that Ukrainian government will not just step back, surrender easily.
So gentlemen, do you believe after this conflict, are we going to see just a little bit more about this, the forecast of our futures? After this conflict, do you believe we're going to see another round of a Cold War, or?
Oh.
Well, I think it's pretty hard to see we are going to another Cold War, because we don't have two military group or bloc, or confrontational bloc like what we see like the Soviet Union, the US-led NATO or whatever. But I think after this conflict, and especially during the conflict, we already see the US has successfully reunified its Western allies, and you see more unified European Union. Although they have a lot of internal conflicts or debates on their approach to Ukraine, but on their attitude towards Russia, that was already unified. And for the US part, especially for NATO, previously President Macron has said NATO has already, the brain of NATO has already dead. But you see all these moves by NATO, the function has been actively done by the US, and especially about this collective defense. And you see prior to this conflict, the NATO has successfully push their army into this kind of like Romania or other deployed to those regions. So I think that for NATO it's a game, but economically I think more.
NATO also benefit from this a lot from this conflict. What about the other parts? Go ahead.
Sure. I think for Russia, it's going to be much more negative. Compared to other parties, because we also talked on Friday that sanctions can last for a rather long time, even when the conflicts are over. And also, internationally speaking, right now the sentiments against Russia are really high, comparing to the support for Ukraine and other parties. So whatever results Russia achieved, it's going to be, I would say, much more negative and last for a relatively long time for Russia to deal with.
对，这个是显然的。这个俄罗斯呢和这个北约啊，
Yes, of course, and that is obvious.
北约这个
For
关系冷战
NATO,
这个已经成为已经是既成事实了。所以这个关系修补呢，恐怕也
their
是需要相当
relationship
长的一
with
段时间。
Russia
所以
would
呢，
soon,
欧洲
will
呢，
of
欧
course
盟
be
内
cooled
部呢
down.
也有很多人认为，
And
就是说
inside
这个新时代这
EU,
个铁幕呢
many
正在
people
缓
also
缓地落
believe
下
that
这
the
个
new
当然也
era
看
of
当
the
然从我们
Iron
目前这个
Curtain
制裁的
is
规模
gradually
程度
falling
来看呢，
down.
那还是比较严
And
重的。
judging by the
所
current
以估
degree
计
of
这个
sanctions,
关系的修复
it's
需要
very
相当长。
severe. It will take a long period of time to
Especially
restore
for
the relations.
Sanctions parts, we know there are a lot of sanctions right now, and even after this conflict, even both sides reached a comprehensive and peace negotiation.
Yep.
But those sanctions will be a bargaining chip, not only between U.S. and Russia, but also the U.S. and its Western allies like European Union and Russia, and that will become a bargaining chip for both sides for quite a long time, and that will reshape the geopolitical pattern. Yeah.
Right.
对，而且呢，实际上是这样。如果我们回到去年，
And one more thing,
去年
when we
11月
look
份，
back
当这个
to
俄方
last
第一次
November,
向这个
when
北约
Russian
提出这个他的
side
所谓
for
安
the
全诉
first
求的时候，
time
我不知道各位记不
posted
记
the
得第一条就是
requirements
要
for
求
the
北约
security
退到
concerns
1997
to
年时候的这个
NATO.
边界。
They urged that
当时大家认为
NATO
这个
goes
是漫
back
天要
to the
价，对
front
吧？
line
这
of
个根本就不可能
1997.
的嘛，对
We
吧？但是
believe
其
that
实
it
俄方
was
是很认真的讲。
impossible. However,
Where was the
they were demanding it for serious reasons.
那是第一轮通过，第一轮通过的。
1997, that was for the first round of extension.
I read a lot of analysis about it. That means the Western has already know where the bottom line. And you see prior the conflict, the mainstream media in the West, they just portrayed we're going to have a conflict, like on which date, and in this kind of condition, under this kind of condition, the NATO has successfully deployed all these troops and just put all these troops there, and that means we are not going back to the 1997 line, and that is clearly rejected Moscow's demand about the Moscow's legitimate security concern. So.
而且呢，实际上这个很多人都在讨论啊，就是说这个
And
俄方
we are
是吧
also
这次战略
discussing
上是否有误判的问题啊。
whether
当然
there's a
可能在具体
misjudgment
这个
for
军事
the
行动上，我认为呢还是可能有
military
误判的地方啊，就是说
decisions of
可能
the
没有充分顾
Russian
及到
side.
乌方这个抵抗的程
Of
度
course,
是吧？
some for some
而且呢
details
这
they
个
have
由于
made
这个
some
避免呢，有很多人
misjudgments.
讲啊，这个也
For
没有出
example,
现
the
这个
defense
是吧？
forces
夹道
of
欢
the
迎的这种
Ukrainian
场
side,
面是吧？
and they had expected to see
对
some welcoming message
但是从实际上来讲呢
for the
我认为
Russian-speaking
这个
area,
俄方
but
啊
it didn't
它
happen.
实际上是有一个通盘的考虑的，就是说
However,
其
I
实我们
still
都知
believe
道
that
啊，
they
就是
have
在此前呢
already
很多人都
captured the
认为
big
俄方呢这
picture.
个俄军不可能发动大规模
Earlier, a
这个
lot
反
of
战对
people
吧？顶
don't
多是在
believe the
乌东地区是吧？
possibility
承认独立之后
that Russian
有可能
troops
采取什么
would
类似的军事
launch
行动，但
a
是不会
massive
像
military
现在这种规模
operation.
对吧？很多人都有这个判断，但是实际
The
上
fact
结
has
果相
gone
反
against our
那只能说明
expectation.
俄方在这此前呢，它是一个周密计划，然后
So
呢它
we
选择了
believe
一个
that the
认为
Russian
他
side
认
has
为
already
可能是
planned very
Do you
carefully.
think this still included? It's still within the plan. This is now out of the.
Yeah,
it's
I
not
think
out
so.
of the expectation.
Yes, I think so.
That really need to define what kind of goal the Moscow wants, like the two self-declared republics to have this kind of independence and to consolidate its Russia's actual control for Crimea. You see, for their control of the neighboring reservoir to give this kind of water supply, and also to successfully ban Ukraine enter the NATO. Now you see Ukraine cannot get into the NATO, and also for the EU right now. So for Russia, they already get what they want at least. Yeah.
所以有些事情呢，如果我们联系的看呢，它实际是背后
So
是有
if we
一些这个
can
关联
build
的
up this correlation between the
最简单的，
events,
比如说
then
白
you
俄罗
can
斯
see the
公投，对
logic.
吧？
For
我们其实
example,
很
the
多人都
referendum
忽视
in
这个白俄罗
Belarus.
斯公投，
A
对吧
lot of people
3
have
月26号就
ignored
是在这个
that
俄方发动特别军事行动之后这个期间，
it has taken
而
place
且
just
最关
after
键
the
的问题在
outbreak of
于
the
这个
special
白俄罗斯
military
公投啊，其中
operation.
有很重要一项，
And one
白俄罗斯
important
在它的境内
activity
可以
about
部
this
署核武器
referendum of
这个
Belarus
其实也是公投的主要
is
内
the
容之一。所以说你要
deployment
联
of
系来看
nuclear
的话，
weapons.
这个
If
是
you
整
take
个俄方
everything
行动的其实是
inside
它的
this
一部分
package, you can understand the bigger
It's
picture.
well calculated.
对
Yeah.
对。
Well, that's a big plan. That is
当然我们
such
不能
a
讲
big plan. We didn't realize that connection between.
当然我们不能讲是一个很大的计划啊，但是至少从目前我
Well,
们
I
掌握的
cannot
情况来
say
看，
that is
是吧
a huge plan, but
可能
according
跟
to
这
the
个很多
information
媒体
we
分析
have
的
had,
对，
it may be different from the
对
analysis
其实都
and
是有联系
media.
的包括
calculation. Yeah.
对，包括刚才我们讲啊，
Things
这
are
个
all
为什么好像
correlated.
突然之间
And
过了一个
we've
周
also
末，是吧
mentioned
双方
that
就取得了
why
重大
over
进
the
展，是吧？
weekend
对，实际
suddenly
上
there's
呢，
significant breakthrough in
我
their
感觉呢，因为
talks.
双方在这是各方一直在谈，
Because
就
all
是在此
parties,
前
they
各
are
方
in
都
the
展开了
process
这
of
个密集
talks.
的这个外交
And
这
even
个
before
斡
this
旋啊
round,
就
they
一直
have
在谈，各
started
方都
this
在谈。
political
Let's hear
mediation.
from
All
the-
parties are
Professor
in.
Luo. So, Professor Luo, what do you think about this? What do you think about the future? Are we going to see a new era of the Cold War after this conflict? 罗老师，你觉得这个在这个冲突结束啊，冲突总会结束的哈，但这个军事冲突结束之后，这个会不会迎来新的这个像冷战这样的情况再次发生？
Will we face again this Cold War situation?
这个特别军事行动它的结果怎么样？比如说这个
As to the
战争的
result
这
of
个
the
结果怎么
special
样？
military
如果说
operation of this
我们都知
conflict,
道二战
we
结
all
束以
know
后
that
就冷战
after the
爆发
Second
冷战爆
World
发的一
War,
个重要的
immediately
一个标
we
志事件
witnessed
是
the
什么？
Cold
就是
War. And the
这
symbolic
个德国
event
的这个分成东德西德是吧？
is the
那
division
么
of
德国
Germany
分裂，那么就冷战
into
就是
East and
沿着这个
West.
柏林呢这个地方就开始柏林墙的修建，
And
那么冷战
starting by
就有了这么
Berlin,
标
there's
志
the
性的
Wall
这
of
么一
Berlin
个东
constructed.
西。
That is
那
the
么现在呢
symbolic
很多人都说乌克兰呢，如
event.
果说
And today, when we
也
talk
陷入
about
这种分裂
Ukraine,
的这种状态的话，那
if
么
the
就预示
country
着这个
follows the
欧洲
path
的
of
冷战的这个
Germany,
铁幕啊，就再一次的降下。
then
我觉
it
得这
will
讲的还是有道理的啊。就是如
step on
果
the
说
path
乌克
of
兰的分裂
division,
的话
and then we
那
can
么
expect to see
就是分
another
成这个几
era
个
of
部分，
Cold
是
War,
两个部分。
and
那
then
么
Ukraine would
确
be
实从形式上来
separated
说
into，
它确实
different
有点类
parts.
似这个我们可以
So
类比
from
当
this
时欧洲的这
form, you can do this
那么这个
analogy of Europe
这个
after
情
the
况呢
Second，World
我
War.
想俄罗斯也好，还是这个
For
乌克兰
Russia
也好，
or for Ukraine,
我想他们都不愿意看到这个结果
I。believe that both
那
of
么
them will
因
not
为冷战
want to see the
这样的话
situation
对俄罗斯没
happening.
什么好。
If there's a Cold War in
从这样
Europe,
的话，对乌克兰也是
it's
一样，
no
对
good
欧
news
洲的
for
其他国家也是一
Ukraine
样。
or for Russia, and is not in the best interest of Europe. Now we have already bid farewell to Cold War. We don't want to have a second round of the Cold War again. And for Russians, if they don't achieve their original intentions or just partly achieve their military goals, and they cannot settle the situation, and they cannot dissolve this risk of NATO's further eastwards extension, then it's also possible that we can meet some other operations of some sort in the future, and it can also lead to the further division of Ukraine. So now different parties, they're all sitting down by the negotiation table. We have already noticed some preliminary signs, and we think the landscape in Europe is walking towards a negative direction for the end of this conflict. It's very hard for us to make the prediction now.
Thank you, Professor Law. We're now joined by our CGTN strainer, Mattia, who is in Kharkiv, city of the Kharkiv. So we can now. Hello, Mattia. Hi, Mattia. Mattia is in Kharkiv, the second largest city in Ukraine. He has been. Hi, Mattia. It's upside down. Hi.
All right.
Oh, it's snowing.
It's snowing?
Am I talking?
Yeah, we can hear from you.
Okay.
How are you? How are you doing? How are you doing, Mattia?
Yeah, I am just a little bit outside the center of Kharkiv, and you can hear the bomb shelling because today, like yesterday, the battle to defend.
Mattia, I think you have to. I think you have to set up your microphone again.
Or your scarf has covered.
Can you hear me well?
Maybe your scarf has covered the microphone.
We can hear from you, but it's
not very clear.
This is not very clear. You want to set up your.
I also don't hear you very well. I apologize. Let me just show you where I am.
Yeah, it's better. It's better. Go ahead.
Evacuated, of course. And the battle to defend
Hi, Mattia.
is very, very strong today.
Mattia, I think your hands are holding on. I think your hands are holding on a microphone. I need you to move your
move and postpone the Russian tanks.
Maybe our production team can. The production team you wanna connect with Mattia and let him to reset the whole thing again.
So I didn't hear your question.
No, can you speak something? We want to test your voice again.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's getting better. It's getting better.
Yeah. So I was telling you, I apologize for this inconvenience, that the Ukrainian army today was able to defeat the Russian tanks using some special weapons like javelin, anti-tanks weapons. And now the Russians are going away from Kharkiv, but they can still shelling the city, of course. So the most important cities around Kharkiv are under the control of the Ukrainian army.
Okay. I think I'm going to turn back to the chat room
again. I will
again.
show you some place totally devastated from the attack. And
okay, it's getting better. It's getting better. Go ahead, Martia. We want you to show us around. Maybe we hand it over this, well, if this the voice is okay, we want to hand it over to you, and you may be leading us and walk around the street on Kharkiv and show us around and tell our audiences about what you saw in the past few days.
So we are in the middle of Kharkiv, not far from the center, and is a district called Saltivka, but it's really in the city. You can see the situation of many buildings here.
So that was the building has been under fire.
So
it's basically destroyed.
I apologize also for using these heads, but it's snowing, so today Kharkiv is under shelling, but it was not in the night. And the situation is still under the control of the Ukrainian army. We do have electricity and we do have water.
Martia,
so
Martia, are you using an iPad?
A bit better than Mariupol.
You might want to change into another camera on the other side and show our audiences about the street view.
I can do like this because I'm using another phone for battery, but I can do like that.
Okay, when did this bombardment started?
So this is a real footage of a real war, unfortunately.
So when did this bombardment happen? He can't hear me.
In a district that is a completely ghost town, completely ghost neighborhood, but the Ukrainian fighters and the Ukrainian army have the control of the city, and what you are hearing are shelling from the Ukrainian sides against the Russian tanks. So this attack is aimed to put back, to move back the Russian tanks, and actually it's been 3-4 days that the Russian tanks are going away. They are moving back. They cannot take Kharkiv, but of course they can shell and they can use artillery every day, but it's a little bit less intensified. It's not like last week where the city center was destroyed.
Where are those residents now living?
We have 400 buildings destroyed, but the city is not completely destroyed. And we do have water, as I said, and electricity. I don't know what is the plan and the strategy of the next weeks, of course, of the Russian. I can just tell you precisely that the city of Kyiv is under the Ukrainian control without tanks inside the city from the Russian side. So these are the images that I can report. And even around me, it's not everything completely destroyed. It's a bad missile. It's a nuke that hit these neighborhoods, and we are very close to the front line, as you hear. We cannot move on because the police told us just to stay here, to stay put. But I think it's important to report that the front line outside Kyiv is under the Ukrainian control, pardon me. Also, there is a very important news that the Ukrainian Secret Service, SBU, was able to catch some phone calls from the Russian army people. And it seems that this news is objective.
Well, it's a little bit hard to hear from Martia. We believe this network connection is not very good. Maybe the Martia can set it up again, and our production team will help him to do that. And well, this time let's love across to another guest, the Jan Wusser, who's now in Kyiv. Can you hear me, Jan?
I can hear you.
It's much better. Well, this network is much better. So now this time, well, first, thank you so much for joining us in the chat room in the last week. And we'll be here from a lot of the latest situation from the Kyiv. And this time we want you to, maybe we change this way. Maybe you can, we hand it over this time to you, and you can show us around about the Kyiv, on the streets of the Kyiv, and tell us a little bit about the situation right now.
So I'm switching to Kyiv. This is live from central Kyiv. This is one of the main roads that go through Kyiv, through the central district. As you can see, there is more life that we've seen previously in past, I would say, almost 3 weeks. 19 days was it?
Yeah.
Since the war started, and because what happened this weekend on Saturday, one of the ministers asked people to restart the economy. So I was outside in the morning at 8 o'clock, and it was not picking up. But now I can see that they are actually. You can see people on bicycles. You can see cars. I mean, the traffic is definitely picked up, especially in downtown. I mean, there was a lot of traffic in Kyiv when you were in the outskirts and people were fleeing and stuff like that. So there were traffic there, but not in the downtown. Downtown was pretty much a ghost town. Usually, when you've seen cars, it was 6 cars on a road, and now you can see 50, 100 cars, and they are moving. And it's not just ambulances; it's people who are going to their jobs, and
so this is
and
not
they
a
need
central.
to restart the.
Is this the
This is central. This is
a central part of the town. Okay.
Yes. So if you look this way, that's Maidan Square. Is at the end of this. I don't want to say at the end of it.
Because I'm seeing this is the pretty peaceful scenario. Like I thought people are walking and there are cars on the street. That means the oil supply is still there.
But the thing is that normally you will have thousands of people here.
Okay.
So you have like.
So people are going.
Like, this is a rich neighborhood. You know, because those buildings, and this is a rich neighborhood, one of the richest. And it's funny to see the shots from Matya, and then looking at my shots at the same time, and it's a completely different story. And this is the story of the air defenses of Kyiv, because what we have in Kyiv, we have shelling, and we have the same thing that is happening in Kharkiv, like Matya was showing us.
Yeah.
But we have air defenses, and when you see the destruction in Kyiv, I would say half of it is debris that was from shot down rockets. And you see a lot of traffic now like this. I haven't seen. And on this street I walk every day for past 20 days. This is the first time I see something like this. This is the first time I see civilians. Normally you just see ambulances and black window cars with like, and this is. The life is picking up, and I think people are. Can I switch like this? It's okay for
it's okay.
For a moment?
It's okay. It's okay. I'm not sure if it's convenient for you to walk around. Maybe you can show a little bit more about this neighborhood.
Sure.
Because we've been received this comments from our viewer and users are telling about they want to see they never been to the Kyiv before, so they want to see.
This is one of the I wish I could afford to live here.
Okay.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It seems like a very fancy neighborhood.
Very, 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 very expensive, very rich. But also Kyiv is very, very rich city. You can see a lot of cars that are like electric cars, a lot of new cars, a lot of expensive cars.
Yeah.
But as you can see, the shop, it's closed. And all the shops on this street, like you have another shop, you have some people shopping here, like coming from a shop. But if you see, like you have these small,
what does it mean?
Small houses like that, like coffee houses, like food houses, and they are all closed everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's impossible. It's impossible to get anything on the street. All the restaurants are closed. I mean, if you look at the opposite, there is a channel, the fashion brand. It's a big window. I don't know if you can see it, but that's if you go further this way, it's all of these expensive fashion brands that are on this street. This is the most expensive street in Kyiv I'm standing on, and it looks peaceful, but I can tell you that we were hearing sirens as I was starting the stream, and but you hear sirens all the time, and now you won't even see that people don't react to them anymore.
Yeah.
Like when you are on the street.
How is the weekend? How's the weekend? Can you still hear the siren or any airstrikes that happened during the weekend?
There was shelling. But it was mostly in the eastern part of Kyiv, as there is another offensive coming from the eastern part, northeastern. So the offensive was until now the northwestern. That's one front, and now they are creating a second front on the northeastern, and that is unfortunately being hit sometimes even more than here, because this is the heart of the city, and they have to defend this at all costs because they have the people who are important. There is the government district is nearby, and if you want to pass through Kyiv, like you go from east west or north to south, this is the place. This is the place where you actually have to pass. It's the heart of the city. So I hope it will stay like this, because you have ancient buildings, historical buildings that cannot be rebuilt. Cannot be rebuilt. And the weekend was hard. I heard on Saturday it was the hardest shelling of Kyiv, but the hardest shelling of Kyiv in the eastern part, as I am in the central part, and this is 5 million people are living here. It's a big city, so you don't even hear that. You just see the news in the morning. But we see, I don't want to say explosions landing, but explosions in the sky. Like you can see that coming over our heads, and you can hear the explosions of being shot down rockets. You can see that in central Kyiv, because Vladimir Zelensky is hiding. His area is nearby the central Kyiv, so they want to get him for sure.
So is Zelensky still in within the city of Kyiv?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I was told that he doesn't want to leave, that he wants to stand the ground. His location is of course secret. He is also sometimes meeting with the media, and but he's heavily guarded. I knew that he had offers from European Union for evacuation, and he declined. He said that it's important to show the moral support and the strength of the head of the country first, and then you can expect. Actually, I can actually try to look inside the shop here.
All the shops are closed or shut down.
Yes, this is a big fashion. I don't know this brand especially, but this is a shop, right? This is a shop, a fashion shop, right? And where you can buy designer clothes, and there are still some clothes. Well, not anymore, but I mean, like there's still some clothes inside. There's still some clothes inside. You can see. But some of the stores, they have been emptied. I think because of looting. Because we have a lot of looting, especially happening in the area where people are escaping, like the Irpin area, where the fighting is. And what I seen is like when they catch these looters, they put their pants down and they duct tape them to a pole, like you see this pole, like this light pole, and they just leave them there. And I think it's being really punishable because of the cold. We go from 0 to -10, like it changes rapidly. Like today is a nice sunny day. It seems our pharmacy, we have a pharmacy that people are coming in, so those are open, and usually.
What about a price of the medicine? Is it going up or after the conflict outbreak?
Some of the prices are going up, especially the gas. The gas.
Now, what about medicine? You said it's the farmer.
Medicine is the same. It's the same, but I think that they are still doing the supplies. They are still doing the supplies.
Can you get inside this? Is that a pharmaceutical?
Yeah, I couldn't because
okay. They don't want you to shoot. Okay.
I had to pre-agree to shoot inside. If I just come in there, it can end my live stream. So I just wanted to show you that it is right now.
You know,
maybe
the situation
even
right here is way much better than the Kharkiv. As you remember that we've been shown by the Marty of about Kharkiv before we live across with you, and everything was ruined.
I seen that. I was watching.
Yeah. But here it looks good. It's so hard to believe that you're in the center of the conflict zone. That everyone just walking around. I understand there are much fewer people on the street. They used to have lots of people. It used to be a very, very busy neighborhood, but
very busy, hundreds of people. But now you see 5, 10 people.
But it's still way much better than Kharkiv. It's so hard to believe this is the city that has been under this that has been in this conflict, right? So
it is hard to believe. It's hard to believe.
Is that because of the? Is that because of the 4th rounds of negotiation?
I think the biggest safety is the air defense. So also the negotiations are helping a bit, I suppose. But I heard that the fighting has been more extreme, more dangerous.
Sure.
And there will be new 9 offensives that are coming into Ukraine, and one of them is going to hit northeastern Kyiv, which is being bombarded, and it was bombarded even today, and was bombarded yesterday. And they started using drones, dropping bombs. So the air defense system, they cannot really see them. I was talking with the air defense system and some of the experts, and they said that the drones are too small, and the system thinks it's a bird. Yeah. So the drones, they fly in the central Kyiv. We had the Russian Federation army drones flying into central Kyiv and dropping bombs that were actually having bearings, like from a wheel. And when it hits you, it just like it cuts you in half. So as you can see, it's a tobacco store and it's closed. I mean, it's funny. They put the light on always. They don't turn the light off, but it's closed. There's nobody there.
What do you expect for the ongoing fourth round of a negotiation? The people around you, do you have a high expectation for the next round of a negotiation?
I think that the next round of negotiation, and as I read somewhere, should be done in between the two presidents, maybe in a different third country that can negotiate with them, because until now we haven't seen much of a change, except for the fighting maybe was a bit lower when they started negotiating. But I think that the best will be to get these people together with arbitrary country which is neutral, like for example, which is not part of NATO, that's. So I don't think these peace talks will actually manage to change the situation, because the first 3 rounds didn't manage to change the situation. The humanitarian corridors are still under fire. There are civilians being killed every day and that is not something that you expect when you are negotiating for peace. That do you have any more questions, please?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
We just want to look
Enjoy
at the
Kyiv,
street view of the Kyiv.
You just want to enjoy Kyiv.
It's a beautiful city. Well, I can guarantee that it was a beautiful city. It's my first time to saw the street view on the Kyiv.
It's beautiful.
We hope the conflict could get over as soon as possible. The COVID-19 could get over as soon as possible, so we can visit the city some days in the future.
But this is the old center. So,
The old center.
we good?
Yeah. So is this a square Maidan?
No.
No?
This is. I'm actually going away from Maidan. Maidan
is
I was
another
coming
place.
from the Maidan.
Oh,
Square.
okay.
So the Maidan Square is further down.
Okay,
It's a
we
bigger
see.
square.
Okay.
But it's similar looking,
Uh-huh.
because of the architecture of the communism was also during the communism, the Soviet era. Was like they were building like through like similar looking the metro stations and all these things and all the buildings. So some of these squares they look alike,
Maidan.
but this is not the Independence
not
Square.
square Maidan.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's maybe 500 meters the direction you are looking now. So and Independence Square is the heart of the city, sort of.
Okay. So yeah, before we go, I have a last question for you. How long do you think this conflict will lasting?
Wow, this is something that
I think people around you might discuss that all the day. So we want to hear from you. How long do you think this this
And also
conflict
about
may
the
go on?
residents in Kyiv. What about their expectations?
Well, the residents who are living on outskirts of Kyiv or who are living in eastern part of Kyiv, they are fleeing in huge numbers. Not the same numbers as they were doing in let's say at the beginning of the war, but if you go to the train station and I go there frequently, it's like there is a lot of people there, and when the train is announced, because there is a lot of delays with the trains, when the train is announced, people start running with baby carriages. And it's because they want to have a seat. The train ride takes 8 hours or 24 hours, so you don't want to. You want to have a seat, and this is happening every day on the train station. Also, the security of the train station is now being controlled by the police. It's sort of a checkpoint. So before you can just walk in, and now even the locals are being checked. Even the refugees who are being driven. Oh, sorry. It's the army, and I cannot show that, so I had to.
Okay.
I had to lower the camera. That's the rules.
Okay.
Because I'm
I
accredited, and I cannot show what passed where and anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's get back to this chat room. Well, it seems quite. It's out of my expectation. It seems quite peaceful.
He said
on the street.
There were thousands of people. So now it's just like dozens. So still a very different.
Yeah, this used to be a very busy district in the city, but now the people have been flitting away from the downtown, might be to the other cities. And I've been told by the production crew that another CGTN strainer, the Martia, who's in Kharkiv. He has been have some technical problem with his phone. Is out of the battery right now, and we hope to reestablish this connection with him later. But now let's move to the footage that has been filmed by another CGTN reporter, our Dmitry Peskov, who's in Donetsk. I think he's in the area of the Donetsk, and he has been. He had just sent back this footage, this very precious footage, in Donetsk. He is under the shelling. His area that is standing in is just after a shelling. So let's check out the footage that's sent back by him.
Take the camera. Okay. Did you get something? Over there is being hit by the bombs. Now I'm doing better. I'm calmer now. In less than 1 second, before you can realize it, you can already feel the shocks coming from the bombardment. Then afterwards I can see the rising smoke and you realize that you can do nothing. You got no time to hide or to find a shelter. We all lie down on our belly on the ground.
Well, it's so hard to believe that what the Maslak has been through. But we have the more footage that has been reported by the Maslak earlier days near, I think it's in Mariupol, right?
Yeah.
It's been shot in Mariupol.
No, it's not Mariupol. Just a shot, yeah.
This footage? This footage has been shot near Mariupol.
Nearby Mariupol.
Nearby Mariupol, and our reporter Maslak is right now in the city of Mariupol. So it's been very hard to reach out to him because of the network connection. The Mariupol has been a city that's been heavily bombarded, and so we really want to do this live cross with him today. But it's so hard to reaching out to him. Our production crew is working on this. But let's show you some of the footage that bring back by the Maslak earlier days in Donetsk, other parts of the Donetsk. So let's check out.
Ожесточенных боев с окраин все больше удается пробираться вглубь райцентра, и сомнений больше не остается. Город
has come back to relatively calm status. As you can see, the city has been ruined. All the buildings, they are damaged to some extent, and they are shelled. This is the remaining of a central hospital of Volnovakha. You can also call it a residential building, because still some of the residents from the locale, they are hiding themselves in the underground shelter. We've received a warning saying that only the ground floor is accessible. And the first floor and the second floor, they are severely damaged, and maybe there are buried grenades, so we cannot go up there. It's very insecure. Almost the whole entity of the hospital has been ruined. Before the arrival of the humanitarian aid, local people have to go inside the remainings of the hospital to get access to the drugs and medicines as well as the other facilities. But it's also a miracle for us to see that this room of the registration records has been kept safe. And from the States as well, you can imagine how severe that bombardment has been. You can also find the bodies of the soldiers. Coming up, some footage that will make you comfortable. And some people may believe that this is not very professional. However, I believe that is the reason why we need the media to do the job. I will show you what is the war. Now I'm standing by a burned down vehicle on the street of Volnovakha. Inside there are bodies. I guess that they are soldiers because we have found rifles and ammunition by their side. We are not specialists, but judging by their look, they should be very young. Young soldiers. And also we can find bodies burned down even more severely inside the vehicle, and by the side of the road you can find grenades and also some pieces coming from the bombardments over there. If you look up to the sky, on the wires of the power, electricity wires, there's a man lying there. He's been thrown up into the sky, and he's been laid there on the wire due to the shock, the heavy shock coming from the bombardments. And you can also find a lot of abandoned vehicles by the roadside, and you can imagine that before the heavy crossfire, people have tried their best to flee the city. And now you can see the holes left by the shelling on the body of those vehicles. People have abandoned their vehicles. Our house has lost the roof, all the glasses broken. Nearby houses also damaged. What we need most now in the city of Volnovakha is peace. You can find the ruined houses, some buildings, for example, this vocational school has also been ruined. You can find the rocket facilities and also some leftover cartridge cases as well as the bullets, and judging by all the objects and also this fire, there have been some people staying in this vocational school of Volnovakha. They try to kill time, and they even set up some temporary canteen here. You can find some leftover cans of food, some pickles, and also sugar. And over there, the classroom is in relatively good status. You can still read some boards on the wall. You still have to clean up this place. And the people, they have been hiding from the shellings in the underground shelters. They are also afraid in the meanwhile, but because the buildings may crack down with the shocks coming from the explosion and bombardments. And today, for the first time, they come down and they can have some smiles. The first several days have been the most difficult ones. Those are the people who have been hiding together with us. Some of them did not survive. This is a really sad story. We are here to find some stories of this kind, but also similar stories can be found in Donetsk and Lugansk. We really hope that we can have a beautiful future. Now the crossfire has been ceased. Some of the people went back to the apartment to spend the night. But some others have decided to abandon their apartments because they're so frightened in front of those bombardments and explosions. First of all, we've been hiding in the underground, but later on, due to the explosion, there's smoke coming inside the shelter, so we are forced out of the shelter. It will take several months or even some years to restore the city. Nobody knows the exact date. However, what we know for sure is that life continues. They don't want to leave this hometown even though it's broken.
Well, that is the footage that have been sent, that have been filmed by CGTN reporter Maslak, who's in Donetsk. Something that we used to saw in the movie, but now it's remind us that it's something real. This is pretty heartbreaking. It's a horrific scenes that we saw in this videotape, and it was remind us that the conflict is happening, and we hope to reaching out to the Maslak as soon as possible, that we can talk to him about what he saw in the Mariupol, which is another the target that has been under the heavily bombardment right now, and also we hope this conflict could get over as soon as possible. And there's a lot of Ukrainian people are leaving their country. There's a lot of Ukrainian people living somewhere else. For example, here in Beijing, there's a lot of Ukrainian people are living in this city right now. So so now I'll be joined by one of our guests, who's the Ukrainian, who's living in China, in Beijing for many years. The name is Valeria Latovka. Hello, Valeria.
Yes.
I'm sorry, am I pronounced right, your name? Maybe you can give me a correct pronunciation.
Yeah, you can basically call me Val. It will be easy
Val?
for you.
Okay, Val. And also we know that Val have a Chinese name called Duoduo.
Yes.
Hi, Duoduo. You might want to, how about we start with a little bit of introduction about yourself. When did you get in Beijing, and what are you doing right now?
So I've been in Beijing already 10 years. Well, I've got scholarship from Confucius Institute. It was a great opportunity for me. I'm from Kharkiv. So, and there was the Kharkiv Confucius Institute, which gave me an opportunity to come to China, studying abroad. And right now I'm working in Chinese company, speaking fluent Chinese. And right now, for a current moment, I'm here.
Okay. And you said you're coming from Kharkiv.
Yes.
And how about your family right now? Are they safe? Are they safe or are they moved to other places?
Okay. So honestly, when the war started, the first day I was started giving my mom call, and she didn't pick up, and was for me it was a tragedy because I was constantly wasn't able to connect her, but then I also have an uncle, my mother's smaller brother, and I was able to contacted him. When I give my mother a call, it was early in the morning, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, so she wasn't able to pick up the phone because she is living in the district called Saltovka, which is very close, and basically is where the all fights, the wall bombing was started. It was basically Alexeyevka in Kharkiv, the districts, and the northern part of Kharkiv, Saltovka. And the Saltovka, for you, is where the civilians is living. It's basically all the civilian district. There is nothing military over there, but it's very close to the border to Russia. So and they start hearing the noise. So my mom was shocked, so she didn't pick up the phone. And my grandpa and grandma, they are living. Yes, she didn't pick up a phone because she was shocked, and she wasn't able to pick up the phone for around 2 hours. I was constantly giving her a call, and after 2 hours she was able to pick up the phone.
Okay.
And during the whole week she was staying in Kharkiv in the city, and right now she moved very close to the Kharkiv. I won't tell any location because my mom asked me to not sharing any location, not any names, because they are really afraid that there will be any information that can harm basically. So I was asking them if they can take some videos, and they say, well, she showed me the streets, and I barely can hear noise and sounds of the bombing, not far away from the place where she's right now standing. But she said, I cannot show these videos, otherwise it will be tracked. So unfortunately, for protection of my family, I won't be able to share any videos right now. But how the morning starts for all the people who is right now abroad but not in Ukraine and trying to contact their friends and parents, is basically every morning. Your morning starts when you pick up the phone, you have the list of the friends, and you start checking them by names, writing the messages, are you okay, are you alright, how was your night? And the messages what you're getting from those who are living in Kharkiv, in Mariupol, because my friends used to live in Mariupol, but he left because his house was destroyed. And he, thanks God, he left. But right now it's difficult in West Ukraine, place where to stay. And when I'm contacting, for example, my grandma recently, so what I'm asking her, are you okay? And she said, well, today night was awful, but we're still alive.
Okay, so we understand your family are still. So we understand your family are still living somewhere near the Kharkiv, not within the Kharkiv, but still around the Kharkiv, maybe in a suburb or somewhere. But we heard that there are the humanitarian corridors near the Kharkiv. Do they have any plans to leave the country, or are they going to stay right there?
Okay, so basically, my mom 2 days ago, she was planning to leave the Kharkiv via this humanitarian pass, and what happened that they received the information, like they already packed. They were trying to leave the house, and then they received the information that no, you cannot go, because basically, though they use this humanitarian pass, but they're still very dangerous on the road, because like Russian soldiers are shooting the civilian cars, and the cases when the civilians was killed were taken by their car was taken.
So your mom has been told that the humanitarian corridors is not safe for them to live.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yes,
they've been told by their friends or other people. Okay.
Yeah, how they can leave use this humanitarian pass is basically if you have a car or you can go by walk. And my mom with the friends who have a car, so they need contact and understand, can they go by car? Can they dry out the Kharkiv? And the guy who is driving the car, he said, no, we are not leaving anywhere because it's very dangerous.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
So they can still, they will living, so they will stay in the house right now. So can they reaching out to other life supports like the water, food, grocery? Do they still have?
Well, the place where they live, staying right now is a kind of a small village. So they are going to the village, and there they are taking some food, and because it's village, they have water, so it's okay right now. So honestly, I can say that thank God my mom is right now have better situation, but I know also, for example, my best friend father is right now in Kharkiv, in city. And what happened is that the rocket shattered the house where they were living. And right now, because my friend, she has a small daughter, and she left. She went to the west of Ukraine, but her father, because the grandma, she didn't want to leave the place. So the father stayed just to take care of the grandma. And what happened is the rocket shot at their house, and right now there is no window, so he's trying to cover the windows because they need to stay there. And this is what is this is a kind of tragedy, because the district where they live in is called Alexeyevka, which is very, very close to the borders, and it's also severely bombed. You can check in the internet, and anywhere you can find that Alexeyevka is basically bombed.
Okay, it's so hard to. I know it's been a tragic things to think about, but. Can you tell me how is your daily life going on in Beijing? I know your family was there. It is thousands of miles away in a conflict zone, but you know, it's so hard for you to live. And maybe you can. Do you have any plans for that, or how does your daily life?
Well, my basically morning starting from checking whether my friends are okay and alive, or my mom alive. Then going to work. In the middle of the day, I maybe start crying because it's really difficult sometimes to cope up with all these emotions. But usually I'm trying to do it to not impact the surrounding people around me, because for all the people who surrounded me, they cannot understand what I'm going through. So the one thing which actually can help me right now, but basically what is helping me right now is those Ukrainians who are here. And I have a friend, and I remember on the second day of the war, when I just give her a call and we met together, and when we saw each other, we just started crying and we hug, and because like very important, like she can share all the emotion what I'm sharing, and so that's how you kind of can feel that you are supported, because like abroad it's very difficult when there is no people who can understand what are you going through. It's very difficult. And we basically, if you talk to all the Ukrainians right now abroad, you can find out that they don't have emotion. We basically burned out. When we are starting talking about how do we feel emptiness inside of us. We maybe smile, but it's actually not the smile, it's stress. And the smile is basically, it's automatical, but it's not that you feel happy or something.
We understand this. We totally understand you. And here in China, you're now living in Beijing and in China, and there's a lot of Chinese people. We'll still focus on this conflict. People around me are watching the news about the latest progress about the battle. Have you been asked by surrounding, because you said you're working for a Chinese company, right? You might have a lot of Chinese colleagues. Have you been asked by them how those Chinese people surround you how did they say about this conflict? And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this conversation between you, because you're the Ukrainian. Then you might be the one who has been asked a lot. So tell us a little bit more about this conversation between you and your Chinese colleagues about this conflict.
Well, it's dual. You know that there are some people who are supporting Ukraine and some people unfortunately support Russia. Yes. I will be honest, those people who are supporting Russia, I usually neglect them. Because for me, what is right now happened to my country, it's too painful. So I said, sorry, I won't continue conversation with you. But there are also a lot of Chinese people who really supporting me, really asking the question, which really like they are trying to understand the problem of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. They asking a lot of questions. They asking questions about my city, about my families. They are sometimes asking some political questions, and especially those maybe some fake news. Especially, for example, there was news that our president left the country, and then I said, no, he didn't left the country, and I started showing them evidence. Yes, we also trying to support Ukraine as well with helping, because I'm speaking Chinese, so I'm trying to help to translate some news which is coming from Ukraine, and those news are also sharing to my friends that they can get the whole view from different sources and understand, and then analyze the information and make their own their own 结果. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Val. Thank you for your sharing, and we understand what you've been through. So we're looking forward to talk to you soon. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope everything goes well with your families. All right. Now we have been joined with more of our experts and trainers. In the next stage, we'll be joined by Professor Xu Jing. He's from the Institute for International and Area Study at Tsinghua University, and Professor Xu is also an expert in Russian study. Hello, Professor Xu.
Hello.
Hi. So you're now in Oxford, right? You're now in Oxford in UK, right?
Yes, I'm doing a postdoctoral fellowship here. Yes, temporarily here in the UK.
Okay. So, Professor Xu, how about we start with your own experiences? Maybe you can just have a little introduction about yourself. Why you studied? We know you study Russian, right? With the Russian studies. So, why do you pick up this subject? Why do you pick up this area?
Okay. I will start with a brief introduction. I'm now doing a research job in Tsinghua University, and I focus on the big Eurasian region. So the Russia and the Ukraine are regarded as a part of the whole region. My career started by learning foreign languages. As you know, the core language in this region is Russian. Although the Soviet Union has collapsed, but you can use Russian language and go everywhere here in this region. And we just saw the interview carried by the correspondents in the eastern Ukraine, and they talked through the Russian language. So today I would like to give some stories about the historical ties between the Ukraine and Russia. Actually, in the 9th century, the Ukrainian capital Kyiv, we know about that, as a center, the ancient Eastern Slavs established the first nation called Kievan Rus, which was once very strong until the division in the 12th century. And then from the middle of the 4th century, Ukraine was ruled successfully by the Mongolian regime and the Kingdom of Poland and Grand Duchy of Lithuania, several countries. After the Great Northern War, Ukraine was divided by, among other powers. And to the near histories, in the 19th century, most of Ukraine belonged to the Russian Empire, and the rest was the territory of Austria-Hungary. During the period of World War I, the Russian Revolution, Ukraine has briefly got the independence from 1917 to 1921, just 4 years. And the following history we are very familiar is the Soviet Union and the contemporary independence for 30 years. I would like to share some stories based on my experience. I began to learn the Russian language in college, and I must admit that Russian is difficult. But when I had no choice but to learn the Ukrainian language when I was in Moscow, I found I was wrong, because there's other Slavic languages are actually more complicated in terms of grammar and expression. That is the point where we can say the connection between Ukraine and Russia. Both countries have their own national language, but from the perspective of linguistics, their languages are pretty similar, and they have the origin of Old Church Slavic languages. My Ukrainian language teacher is a middle-aged lady who has lived in Moscow for decades. She can speak fluent Russian, and you can hardly find any apparent differences with other Russians. I remember I visited her hometown, Lviv. It is located in Western Ukraine, with her strong recommendation. I would say it was a fantastic city with combinations of culture and people. That is why we call it very deep and complicated connection with this country, Slavic languages and Slavic culture. And I would say, to my experience, the hospitality of Ukrainian people is easier to feel, while the Russians are usually treating people far more cautious. It is not a negative evaluation, just based on my experience. But the difference do exist, along with plenty of similarities.
We have been told a lot about this, because well, since we started this special edition of the chat room, we talked a lot about a relationship between these two countries, and we've been told a lot about this. The people from these two countries are sharing a very strong bonding with each other. They're having the brotherhood of each other. But I have been rejected by our guest from the Ukrainian side, because the CGTN strainer from Ukraine, they would say, no, we don't share any of this, the brotherhood. So what is the real situation? How does people from both countries treat each other?
I think it depends on different people, because you can say that maybe there's some explanation that Ukraine is a divided country. There's a lot of differences between the eastern parts and western parts, not just because of politics, also based on their culture and the history. Yes. So my opinion is that we should treat the history objectively, not just put the politics in the first place. I can say that after the Ukrainian crisis happened in 2014, it do really big harm to the country. Yes, Crimea and different parts of the country, and it do lots of harm to the young country and the people. So maybe the ways of people treat each other has changed. So what is worse is that the war happened in February, so it's another tragedy. It's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. So as a scholar who studied the international relationship, and also you have experiences to live in, I think you have been living in Russia for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
for several years.
What do you think is the cause to trigger this conflict? Because we have been talking about this a lot, about this NATO expansion to trigger the conflict. But do you think there are some more reasons in maybe historical level or other levels, like political levels or cultural levels? Is there any other explanation on this conflict?
Yes, indeed, Russia and Ukraine have a tight connection in history, culture, and people-to-people exchange. Several points that we chose here to begin talk represent a picture of these two neighbors. Transforming from the empire and Soviet Union to the current situation, borders are set and territories and sovereignty are respected according to the international laws and norms. However, the ties in history and culture could not be cut by the simple structure of nation state. We should objectively recognize the past and share the excellent culture based on the cognition of relative peoples. But the situation changed enormously fast in the early 1990s, and even people were too late to realize the past could never come back. Based on history and many more details in lifestyle and culture, these two countries should not be simply understood as just two bordering countries. What happened now, I think politics may be the core reason. From the perspective of Russia, their security needs can be understood by what they have said. But from the Ukrainian side, I think their expressions can also be understood from their perspective. But you cannot change the geopolitics. People should be compromised in some ways.
Yeah, and after this conflict, how do you think the people from both sides, to coexist with each other?
I think it depends. Yes, it depends on individuals. As I was studying in Russia, my major was focused on the Eastern European studies, and majorly the Ukraine and Poland. And as my teacher I just mentioned, she has relatives. He has got the Russian nationality, and he has lots of relatives living in Ukraine and other former Soviet republics everywhere. So I think people-to-people exchange could not simply be cut by the reason of politics. But the politics is also hard for the leaders to solve, because they cannot just care about the individual life of individuals, but the security, the foreign policy, and other very high-level reasons. So, yeah.
Okay, I want to cast the same question to our guest in the chat room. How do you think that after this conflict, how does people from both sides of this country, how can they just coexist with each other? 您怎么想？
这个是个很难回答的问题啊。这个
So that is a difficult one
当然
to
确实是
answer.
取决于每个人啊。
或者就是说，这一
depends
场
on
冲突
individuals.
对两边的这个人，他会带来一些
So
怎么
after
样的
this
这种改
conflict,
变吧？
what
就像我
kind
们
of
之前
changes
讨
will
论
it
到的。
bring
这
to
个当然一
two
方面
sides
肯
of
定这
people?
个乌克兰这个
For one thing,
所谓这个民族这个情绪呢，肯定会非常上升的，是吧？
the
这个
nationalism of
所以现在好
Ukraine
像在
will be
网络上
rising up,
很多段子
and
手就
on the
讲说，普
website,
京这个
a lot of
是乌克兰
jokes.
民族的缔造者，对吧？这个因为此前我们
And
都知
people
道
are joking
乌克兰呢
about
这些
that
东西两部
this
分这个差异还是比
military
较明显的，
operation
是吧？
launched by
那
Vladimir
么这
Putin
次
was
这个
helped
军
to
事行动呢，当然
reunify
从
the
另一方
country
面
of
是吧？
Ukraine.
也这个让乌克兰的这个是吧国家意识可能是更强了一
It
些
will
啊，不
help
管是
to
东部还是
build
西
up
部吧，
that
这个我觉
awareness
得
of
这
the
个是客观存
Ukrainians
在
to
的。
consolidate their
当然
nationalist
呢，此
spirit.
前啊，乌克兰和俄罗斯之间呢，
And
在
before
民间
this
交往层面
operation
呢，实际是
between
非常密
Russia
切
and
的啊，
Ukraine,
因
they
为
have rather
这个
close
很多都是
ties
这个
of
跨国的婚
people-to-people
姻啊，包括这个
exchange.
很
For
双方都有很多的
example,
亲属啊，是吧？在分布在两个国家，尤其在这个
and they
边境线
have
上，这个俄
also
罗斯
their
南方这个地
relative
区是吧？这种现象
members
非常普
living
遍的。
across the
而且呢，
borderline.
这个当地的这个生活习俗啊，和他们的这个一
local
些生活
rituals
习惯、生活
and
方式
also
都很
habits
相
of
近的
daily life
啊
are quite similar.
因为在本来历史上啊，那个他们的这个
When we
这
look
个
at
是
the
吧
history,
根源其实都是一个的啊。
know that they
所以
come from
呢，
the
总体
same
来讲呢，这
origin.
个
So in
这场军事
general,
冲突呢，显然
this
是一场悲
military
剧，是吧？这个完全是
operation will surely
兄
be
弟
a
之间的这
tragedy
一场冲
because
突。
it's a fight and conflict
当然，
between
我们
two
现在讲呢
brothers.
我个人观点是，这个冲突完全是可以避免的。
And personally, I believe that
What do you think
actually
of the
it's
conflict?
avoidable.
I think the national identity as a Ukraine is not based on the ethnic groups. It's about the country will be strengthened, and especially for the Ukraine government, now it's time to reunite the two large ethnic groups. You see, after the collapse of Soviet Union, for example, for Ukraine, the how to deal the dividends between the two large groups has shaped what the politics look like today. And you see they have the Russian ethnic president or premier, and then several years later they have the president or premier from the West, the Ukraine ethnic groups. But you see, even after the conflicts, they still need a pretty long time to heal the wound, especially the mistrust between the two sides. Especially you see there are many families, they have the relatives from two ethnic groups, but you see for these conflicts, maybe they have different political attitudes, they have the different understanding about these conflicts, and this maybe has made this kind of family to just split into pieces, or there's the families they won't talk to each other for the political reasons, but to heal the wound, that will cost a lot of time. And especially you see for the young generation, they have witnessed the brutality of these conflicts, and they have this kind of bad memory, especially you given to the hatred speech and the verbal violence on the social media, and also about a lot of like Twitter, like WhatsApp, like Telegram. You see a lot of verbal violence, and that is harming the young generations. And I think that is not that good.
Nothing that's going to be changed.
对，因为是这样，年轻的对，尤其是对年轻一代而言，是吧？他们是在这个社交媒体成长起来的这一代，
They are very active on social media. So I believe that mistrust will grow.
On the social media, because no one will just step back and they just give this verbal fights.
对，尤其是这个民族间的是吧？这种隔阂，它往往
And this time is a conflict between two ethnic groups. It will take several generations to digest the problem.
And whether the relationship between those two countries has been dramatically changed. Yeah. And this is the chat room. Stick around. We'll be right back in one moment.
Talks to people on the ground.
So far, more than 16,000 foreigners have volunteered to join the Legion.
Visiting the front line.
Ты здесь находишься первые минуты и вообще понимаешь, что ты просто не веришь своим глазам, что вообще здесь кто-то в этом городе мог находиться во время боевых действий, кто-то вообще смог.
We've heard and then we've seen Russian Su-27 fighter jet just Oh, here it is again.
Walking with millions trying to flee, and staying with those left behind.
Thousands of people are also taking this train to Lviv.
People are here queuing up, waiting in line one by one.
Watch as the crisis unravels, only on CGTN.
Well, the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is expected to meet with China's top diplomat Yang Jiechi in Rome on Monday. The key agenda of this meeting is for China and the U.S. to exchange views on their relations and discuss common concerns on international and regional issues, according to China Foreign Ministry. So, well, we believe the crisis in Ukraine will be included in this conversation between China and U.S. So, what do you? So, gentlemen, how do you think this the diplomatic efforts of China has been made in this crisis?
这个中方呢此前也多次表达了这个自己的观点和立场，而且呢目前来看呢，这个所有中方表达的观点立场是一贯的，也是明确的。当然，首先在这个乌克兰问题上，是吧？中方呢这个主张呢这个各国的。
For this issue of Ukraine-Russia crisis, we believe that the territorial integrity of all countries should be respected. We also feel very sorry for the status quo of the Ukrainian people. And that is why we have sent several batches of humanitarian aid. And we expect to see the third batch of Chinese humanitarian aid arriving in Ukraine. And we would like to help those refugees.
Humanitarian aid has been arrived in Ukraine. So, what's your take on China's role in this crisis?
Well, Chinese president has actually expressed his concern in his talks with other heads of governments recently. So obviously, China wants each party to go back to negotiation, especially dealing with this special military conflicts. So I think very likely each party will come to a certain deal in the near future, maybe next week or maybe in 2 weeks. And this is exactly what the international society wants. This is also what China wants. We want peace. We don't want to see conflicts. We don't want to see refugees fleeing to other countries, causing more problems and troubles. So yeah, it's pretty clear that China wants peace.
对，这个实际上。就涉及到了一些深层次的问题，对吧？
And you also have to look at the question in depth. For some of the aspects, it's very clear. The Chinese party would like to solve this problem, to settle this situation through peaceful talks. And the other major European countries would share our positioning in this case, because they don't want to see any war in their continent. So they're also calling for the ceasefire and negotiations and peaceful resolution about the current situation.
We can notice the two parts. The first one is like China is kind of a bridge to bring the West and Russia, and because the Chinese president can talk with leaders from both sides. And I have noticed on the social media, like from President Macron and also from German side, they have emphasized that Europeans' diplomatic and peaceful approach to end this kind of conflict was supported by Beijing, and also China has emphasized that we are supporting a kind of a diplomatic approach. That is a constant stand for China, and China can help. But another issue we just want to focus at, we should be alarmed that some Western mainstream media, they just want to put all responsibilities to Beijing, to China, and to blame China, like China is not taking sides, but they is doing something.
Beijing has been accused for doing nothing.
And just before this meeting between China's top diplomat Yang Jiechi and U.S. Secretary Jake Sullivan, and the Chinese Foreign Minister has said the U.S. is doing kind of misinformation against China, is blaming China, is just to divert people's attention, which is not good for the current peaceful talks. And that has just divert people's attention to mislead people's understanding about China's stance. You see, from the beginning of this conflict, and if we go back to several years ago about the NATO expansion, China's stance has never changed.
Yes.
Like all countries' legitimate security concern shall be respected and shall be preserved, and the territorial integrity and sovereignty shall be respected and protected, and diplomatic approach is the key, and no conflicts, and not to escalate the conflicts. That has been China's policy for decades.
That's right.
So that is
the
a key
five
part.
principles of peaceful coexistence.
Since the founding of the PRC, yeah.
所以我就想到了刚才想到另一个问题啊，就是我们大家都在讲，对吧？实际上大家都不想通过这种激烈的手段来解决当前争端。
Nobody wants to use a fierce method to solve the current crisis. But in the end, there's the military operation. The crisis is there. So for the Chinese judgment, the security mechanism of Europe is not a perfect one. You cannot use this eastward extension of NATO to protect your own country's security. That's why we would like to propose a balanced, effective, and sustainable mechanism of security for Europe. After this round of conflict, will it help to solve the problem and change the landscape? It's very hard to tell. We hope that it can help to improve the situation, because currently both sides, they still have a lot of disagreements on some issues. But after the conflict, if Germany and France could have a greater say, then they can find a balance point. But for a lot of European countries, especially the younger European countries, they have this deeply rooted defensive mentality towards Russia. There's no political trust between them.
Yeah. And we've been joined by Professor Rong Ying. He's the Vice President from China Institute of International Studies. Hello, Professor Rong. What is your take on what can we expect for this the upcoming conversation between Jake Sullivan and Mr. Yang Jiechi?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I think the ongoing, I don't know if it should be ongoing, meetings between Director Yang Jiechi and the NSA of U.S. Jake Sullivan is an important meeting for the two countries, and to certainly, I think, as a follow-up of the consensus of the two leaders on how to promote a stable and healthy relationship. And it is particularly important at this juncture as the regional hotspot issues that the Ukraine crisis are going on, and the U.S. and the West in general seems that wanted to find a scapegoat to play by putting blame on China. I think I fully agree with your guests, the panelists, that China is not a party to that conflict. Rather, China is trying its best to promote peace by, of course, stating very clear, consistent policy for promoting peace. But equally important is that China is trying its best to provide its vision, its initiative, to implement these to promote peace. For example, I think the Mr. Wang talking about the root causes of the security architecture, security framework in Europe, which is, I think, largely, primarily, I think, explain the reason for this conflict. This conflict has much bigger and deeper sort of roots as we have seen now. I think a lot of scholars, academics, regard it as a kind of proxy war.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah, we can still hear. Yeah, we're still here.
Yeah, I think so. The Chinese vision, Chinese initiative, I think it's being pragmatic, but also I think trying to put an initiative by addressing, by looking at the root causes of the conflict, which of course it is related to the geopolitics, related to the security architecture in Europe, and it is related to the security concept that has been I mean, the two sides that should help the region as a whole to achieve lasting peace.
And besides this conversation between Sullivan and Mr. Yang, there's also the fourth round of negotiation between Ukraine and Russia that's ongoing. What is your take on that? Because there's been reporting to mention about its ongoing negotiations, saying they might have a comprehensive ceasefire. It's changed a lot compared to the first 3 rounds of negotiation. What is your take?
Yeah, certainly I think it should be welcomed and it should be a positive and good news. But I don't very much optimistic about that, because obviously I think the positions of the two sides are much far divided. More importantly, I see that this war or this conflict, as I can see, as fighting not between Russia and Ukraine. That's the bigger picture, as I have discussed. So unless the bigger players reach to the understanding about the importance of peace and the stop of the suffering of Ukraine, we are going to have more conflict. This is very unfortunate.
I want to continue that discussion that we started off earlier about this the different party of this conflict getting what they get from this conflict. We talked about NATO, we talked about Russia, we didn't talk about the United States, right? So I want to get back to this. So what United States get from this conflict? Do you think the United States is a big winner of this?
Yeah, it's a major winner, I think. We have talked about the politics, about the military, like the military bloc, NATO, but also financially. And you see, for the recent stock markets, like in London, in New York, you see most of the investors, they must taking sides, and they dumped all the Russian company stocks from their hands, and you see the price goes very, very low. And then you see who are the main buyers from the Wall Street. And you see when, just as Mr. Ken just said earlier, that after this kind of peace agreement, or if we can reach kind of agreement, of course, this kind of stocks, the price will go up. And who is the major beneficiaries from the Wall Street? It's about the financial issue. So I think that is one of the winner in this kind of conflict. Yeah.
对，这个实际上呢，我们现在已经看到这个资本是吧回流
Yes, exactly.
这个趋势很明显。
Currently, there's the return of capital to the U.S. because the capitals, they're always risk aversive. When there is the military conflict here in the region, they will be withdrawn from that region. And from the strategic point of view,
破坏了这个欧洲和俄罗斯之间的原来的这个关系发展
has damaged that balance of relations between Europe and Russia. In the past, we have noticed stronger ties of energy cooperation. And now with the outbreak of this conflict, Germany and France and other major countries in Europe, they actually don't want to cut off these lines of energy cooperation with Russia, but they are obliged to. And once it's cut off, they cannot imagine to restore that in a short period of time. And currently for Germany, for coal, for oil and natural gas, they are in a shortage for supply. And they are gradually reducing their dependency on Russia's energy, and they are rethinking the possibility of using coal again.
The U.S. and Europe.
Yeah, so the sanctions themselves against Russia posed by the U.S. already show that the U.S. is manipulating where it goes, and also by supporting the government of Ukraine and suppressing Russia in the international society. So, which is very obvious, the U.S. is behind everything.
So, do you think the United States is now satisfied with what you get? now?
No, but obviously.
So they will let this conflict go as long as possible?
I'm pretty sure that the U.S. government will not go into a face-to-face conflict with Russia. So as long as they're using others as their to play their games, they are satisfied with that, and they would push a little further, or step by step, to mess with Russia.
And mentioning about the sanctions, I think this kind of crisis is also kind of battlefield or test fields for U.S. smart sanctions, because decision makers in Washington, D.C. has put forward this kind of idea several years ago, because they know the kind of reactions from their allies, and we also know there are a lot of American companies that are doing business in Russia, and they have a lot of cooperations with Russia, and they depend on the minerals from Russia. So just want to have fewer losses in this kind of sanctions. They want to have this kind of targeted sanctions and smart sanctions. I think in this kind of crisis right now, it has become a battlefield for U.S. to test what the effectiveness and about the effects for this kind of smart sanctions, and in the future maybe they will modify that and to make it more systematically and to keep lower cost but bigger wins in this kind of.
This is not only the test on the battlefields, but also the test on their sanction weapons.
Yes, sanction weapons, because for Biden, they already said that in their national security agenda to use this kind of weapons to have this kind of political gains to set the political agenda.
所以有的时候你也很难分清啊，就比如像这种军事冲突啊，这个级别的军事冲突，你有时候很难分清是到底谁和谁在打仗，对吧？你要从另一个角度来看，是吧？其实也是欧洲和美国之间的博弈，对吧？从这个角度来看也是这样，因为在此前我们都知道98年克索沃战争，对吧？当然，现在有很多人讲美国挑起克索沃战争的主要目的是为了破坏当时欧元几乎是很快就出台了嘛，对吧？ 当时也有这个目的，是吧？
By then, the European Union is about to adopt the euro, and U.S. is launching that war in order to disturb the mechanism. So this time, the conflict of Ukraine has also disabled the relations between Russia and the EU.
A very informative debate and discussion around conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, and we'll be focusing on this conflict in the following days. It will be focusing on the outcome, any of this outcome of the fourth round of negotiation. But for now, that's it. That is today's chat room, and I will see you next time. I'm Yan Zhao. Bye for now.